Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about Helman Ghorst in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. And I think it is a worthwhile discussion since the vampire counts are going to get a rework in the Lords and End Times DLC to talk about the zombie master of the game in a video. Because this guy is flat out absurd in terms of the things he has available to his campaign. To begin with, he actually is in a somewhat decent position over here in his campaign. Yes, Greases will almost always want to come to you and declare war on you in order to wipe you out. He doesn't really like you, nor does Gelt. But they have issues to deal with. Greases has three factions he starts at war with, and, well, let's just say that eventually, he might have to deal with Grimgor. Never mind the fact that you can actually defeat Greases quite handily, in fact, if you're playing as Ghorst. Kugath absolutely despises you and will almost certainly go to war against you, but you can just simply overwhelm him in zombies, and that is the ridiculous part when we are dealing with a Helman Ghorst campaign, because Raise Dead as a mechanic is already strong enough. But think of it from this perspective. What if we don't use Raise Dead to recruit a bunch of high-end units and we just use Raise Dead to recruit a bunch of zombies in a campaign? Then, well, things get very, very interesting. Now, zombies on their own would not be good enough to justify doing this. And pretty much any other Legendary Lord would have some issues with regards to this position if you were trying to do it with just pure zombies. To be sure, Vlad, Isabella, Manfred, and Kemmler would be able to handle this starting position quite well, but for various other reasons, especially when you think of Vlad and Isabella, they would just demolish Kugath before he became an issue. But what makes Ghorst unique is his relationship with zombies. First off, he starts with the Hunted Forest, so that gives him a growth benefit, income benefit, and an extra. And since it is a landmark, it means that this settlement, even though it's a single region province, does benefit from that extra growth. And you're not going to have rebellion issues either here, so you might end up actually being able to benefit from the growth of a higher level of control, if you are able to get to that stage. In this case, I even got the event of Angry Gods that further gave me 20 growth in all provinces. So that's a very nice benefit. One downside, if you will, is that he does have a bloodline situation where he doesn't have as many blood kisses as some other lords do. But he can more than make up for that with just sheer number of zombies. Like, 3 armies of zombies is just an absurd level of capability that other Legendary Lords can't quite match. I mean, they can recruit the zombies, but they're not really going to be worthwhile. Whereas with Ghorst, you do make them worthwhile. And you can also recruit more zombies than anyone else. You get 10% casualty replenishment faction-wide. Your Raise Dead pool capacity of zombie units is increased by 4 in your own provinces. And then you get poison attacks for zombies, skeletal spearmen, skeletal warriors. But really importantly, it is the question of zombies, as well as getting lesser Raise Dead for corpse carts and mortis engines. And keep in mind, Ghorst is the DLC lord that adds corpse carts and mortis engines in a campaign. But that's just part of his faction effects. Because then on top of that, he gets immune to plague attrition, immune to contact effects, which is quite useful when you're leading a bunch of zombies around. 30 armor to zombies, so that's going to help you out quite a bit in terms of auto-resolve. And since you start a war with the Skaven, you're also going to get the leadership benefit against the Skaven by fighting so many early game battles against them. But where he starts dominating in a campaign is when you look at his special skill line. So first off, he has a significant reduction in terms of Raise Dead cost. Kemmler is better, but you do have Thrall Master and you do have Morbid Reunion. So that's a pretty decent Raise Dead cost reduction. Then you also can get a fairly beefy upkeep reduction, and you do have a beefy upkeep reduction in terms of zombie units, casualty replenishment, and battle healing cap increase by plus 30% once you get to level 13. And again, that is only really part of it. You're also going to benefit a lot from getting the Unliving Host skill line, so that's going to give you melee attack and melee defense for zombies. But the real kicker is what he gets through the Path to Ruin special skill line. So he's going to get 12 melee attack to all zombie units faction-wide, ward save to all zombie units faction-wide, battle healing cap plus 500% for zombie units faction-wide, and then finally 50% for 50% weapon strength for all zombie units faction-wide, and Ravenous Dead. So he's going to get healing and combat for them while they're engaged in melee. So while his zombies are still going to be zombies, and they're still not going to be the top tier units, there are a bunch of secondary effects that are going to come out of this that are really, really going to benefit you in quite a lot of substantial ways. Because while you may be forced to fight individual battles, if you take one army against another, you might have to fight those battles manually, you probably will be winning a lot of those battles as well. But, and this is the but in the discussion, usually when you play a Vampire Counts campaign, you kind of want to go down the path of getting the Lamian Book of Blood. I mean, you always want to because of the Blood Kiss, but beyond just getting the initial one, you kind of don't necessarily care too much about it, because usually the reason for this tree, I mean, there's benefits, but it's really an economic and growth benefit as well as some diplomacy benefit as well. But here's the thing, having so many armies of zombies means your faction strength is elevated more than you might think. The AI makes its decision, not necessarily based on the quality of its armies, though yeah, I'm only a faction strength 101, but a lot of the times what I see in terms of AI decision making, it's going to make decisions whether or not to declare war on you based on how many armies you have and how many units are in those armies. Since you can maintain a lot of armies very damn cheaply in a campaign, like this one is only 576, that gives you a fairly substantial advantage in terms of just having armies laying around. And when you consider the garrison effect, you can actually play very well defensively. But there's a but. Usually you don't go for the Book of Archon, because who wants to buff zombies in most of the Vampire Counts campaign? But in a Ghorst campaign, you absolutely do. So this will further reduce the upkeep of zombie units by 35%. So that means his zombies in his own army are going to be dirt cheap. But on top of that, this entire skill line, yes, it has a bunch of skeletal benefits, but it also has a bunch of zombie benefits. Melee defense, speed 25%, recruitment and raise that cost for zombie units, battle healing cap for zombie units, physical resistance 20% for zombie units, and Vanguard deployment. It starts getting quite ridiculous. You don't want the entire tree, but certainly going down the path of getting all the zombie benefits would be a huge boon in your campaign and make units that by default are pretty rubbish, to be quite honest about it, into units capable of holding their own against much higher tier units. And even if they lose and you lose the entire unit, who cares? They're just zombies. You're not really going to feel the difference too much in your campaign if you were to, say, lose them. And that's the genuine benefit that you start having in a Ghorst campaign once you really go into the weeds of it. While defeating Kugaf may not necessarily feel so rewarding, considering that he has a bunch of unpleasant climate, you do solidify your entire southern flank as a result of it and eliminate a threat. Though, honestly, Kugaf is not so difficult to defeat. You just defeat his one army and he's not going to get another one, whereas defeating Ghorst is a completely different affair. Individually, his armies are very weak, but if he masses 3 full stacks against you, that is going to be a problem for you to actually tackle, and that is one of the strengths that Ghorst actually does end up possessing in his own personal campaign. That kind of ridiculous, over-the-top nonsense of like, oh, you defeated one of my armies, I'm going to recruit another one, and I will do it instantly, and there's not a damn thing you can really do about it. And that makes you ridiculously strong. I would probably recommend doing his quest battle with a completely different army than just zombies. To be sure, you can win it. The auto-resolve be damned in that respect. But it probably would be easier to actually have higher end units. But just transfer them from one army to another, do the quest battle, win it over, and then just continue down your merry way with a bunch of zombies. And here's the thing. There's a lot of factions around you, like there's this minor ogre faction. You're not so great at navigating the mountains, to be sure, but once you get going, you do get going. Your campaign victory objectives are to take Nagash's R and deal with the poxmakers of Nurgle, so you do need to wipe out Nurgle. Long-term campaign objectives are to actually make your way into the Empire, and you kind of can abandon your initial starting position, really, and just go on a merry trip with a huge number of zombies, or try your hand with diplomacy and see how that works for you in your campaign. But those kind of choices, and it makes me wonder how Creative Assembly is going to handle this specific campaign going forward. To be sure, the downside is that you might have to fight a bunch of battles manually that are not especially the most exciting ones to deal with, and yes, Drazov can be something of a nuisance with all the fire attacks he has, so can Imrik. But you could always just go to Cafe and use the sea lanes there to make your way into the Empire. It's a powerful campaign, but the long-term potential and replayability can suffer a decent amount because, you know, once you do it a single time, there's not necessarily as many reasons to do it again. Can be fun though, real fun for that one time. That's all I had to say. Costin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and I'll see you boys and girls next time.